Hi everyone, this is Josh, and today we're going to talk about the new West Side Story 2021 remake. As a quick warning, this review will contain spoilers for the new and original West Side Story, as I'm going to be comparing the two films quite a bit. So if you don't want to hear any of that, then go to this point in the video. There's your warning. 3, 2, 1. This film was written by Tony Kushner and was directed by Steven Spielberg. I don't think I need to give him that much of an introduction. If you're not familiar with the 1961 West Side Story film directed by Robert Wise, it's a classic adaptation of the 1957 Broadway musical of the same name. I really like the original, even though it has a few problems, mainly being that it's cheesy as hell, which largely has to do with the time period it was created, and it's also supposed to be this melodramatic tale of Romeo and Juliet. Believe it or not, this is the only time West Side Story has been remade as a feature film. That's kind of surprising considering the incessant amount of remakes that's churned out yearly. But when you think about how highly regarded and loved the original is, it's pretty easy to understand why no one would want to touch it. With this version, Steven Spielberg takes the material on even though he's never made a musical before, and the results are surprising. West Side Story follows teenagers Tony and Maria, who fall in love despite their affiliations with rival street gangs in New York City. As tensions between the gangs heats up, Tony and Maria's relationship is threatened. This movie was so good, I don't care whether or not it justifies its existence because I was too busy having fun watching it. What I really like about this version is that Spielberg and Tony Kushner tweak the story in a way that tones down the cheesiness without losing the heart and soul that makes this musical a classic. This could have very easily been another uninspired remake that's just trying to make money off of a familiar intellectual property, but the amount of effort and care that's put into every part of this film makes it very clear that Spielberg not only has an appreciation for the source material, but understands it well enough to know how to properly recontextualize it for 2021. This is made abundantly clear in the opening scene that's so well done. It starts with an amazing overhead shot sweeping over the ruins of this territory the gangs are fighting over. The White Gang, or the Jets, emerge from the ruins to terrorize the Puerto Rican community in a frantic scene where they start to tear down shop signs and steal from mom and pop shops. The Puerto Rican Gang, or the Sharks, retaliate as the Jets vandalize a Puerto Rican flag mural, leading to a long and intense scuffle. Spielberg follows all of this action with some really nice long takes and dolly shots, with the music building as this conflict reaches a climax. After the chaos is broken up by the police, a racist cop reminds both gangs that the territory they're fighting over is not even going to be there very soon. It's going to be what is now the Lincoln Center. This is not only a nod to the need for class and racial solidarity, but it's also a clear recognition of the issue of gentrification, an issue that's not addressed in the original version and is a big contributing factor to inequality. I wouldn't say this remake is radically different in terms of the format of the musical. There's no intermission or overture, but the order of songs are the same except for Be Cool, which is placed earlier in the film and is reinterpreted as a fight between Tony and Riff, who struggle over a gun that Riff wants to bring to the rumble between the Jets and the Sharks. I think this is a good change as it elevates the drama between two of the most important characters. Outside of a few small details, the music itself was hardly changed, which I'm totally fine with. The music of West Side Story is so good, no need to fix it if it's not broken. It's kind of weird how the original film is problematic for a few reasons, but the messages in those same songs were very ahead of the time and still hit hard today. America is still a banger that's based as f***. I love that song, and I love the changes that were made to the choreography and setting of the performance. Instead of having the characters perform it on a roof like they did in the original, they strut through the town in this version, and we see the commentary of the song play out visually in these quick montages. I do like the rooftop setting in that it feels more natural, since that's probably where these characters hang out, but I really like the energy of having them bustle around town and incrementally build to a climax in the streets of their neighborhood. Outside of how America is rearranged to be this more epic and exaggerated performance, most of the changes Tony Kushner and Spielberg make are done in an effort to make this version a little more realistic and pack more of a dramatic punch. For starters, there's actual Latino actors playing the parts of the Puerto Rican characters and not just white people wearing brown face. It's an expected choice to not cast characters in a racially insensitive way today, so I'm not going to give this film that much credit, but it's still an improvement nonetheless. One of my favorite scenes from the original was when Tony and Maria first meet at the school dance. Instead of staging their encounter at the center of the dance floor, Spielberg has the main characters meet behind the bleachers. On the surface, that could sound like a boring and lame setting, but because Spielberg's version is supposed to be more grounded, I think this is a good choice. This scene is supposed to be an intimate and private moment between these two characters who know their romance would not be accepted amongst their nearby peers. So it makes total sense that they would go somewhere that they can't be seen. The dance and the flirty back and forth between Ansel Elgort and Rachel Zegler feels genuine and is very well directed. The song that plays during this scene is so amazing. It's been stuck in my head for days now. It's probably gonna be there for a couple more. Oops. What also works about this choice is that it makes the anger that Bernardo has towards Tony more justified. Bernardo is the leader of the Sharks and is also Maria's brother. In the original version, he spots Tony and Maria on the dance floor, separates them, and hates Tony so much after that, even though Tony didn't really do anything that wrong or disrespectful. He was dancing with Maria in plain sight. Whereas in this version, Bernardo sees his sister and Tony come out from behind the bleachers at the same time, which could definitely be interpreted as Tony trying to seduce and hook up with his sister behind his back. Bernardo, like a lot of the other Puerto Rican characters, are just generally more fleshed out in this version. We learn early on that Bernardo's a boxer whose mother has passed away. His father also isn't around and lives in Puerto Rico. With this little detail added, it now makes more sense why Bernardo feels this intense need to be so protective and responsible for his sister. No one else from his family is around, so he probably feels like no one else can. In the original film, his motivations are more broad. He kind of just seemed like a controlling guy who was just defensive of his sister because he loved her. Which is fine. It's not like you need a lot of development after that. It just doesn't hurt to have a little bit more to go off of, you know? Another character that's more well defined is Chino. He's more of a background character in the original and is fleshed out in this story as an academic with a bright future ahead of him that doesn't involve violence. Bernardo sees this potential in Chino and wants him to get with Maria so she'll have a prosperous future with him. That little bit of setup for Chino makes the ending that much more tragic when he throws his life away by shooting Tony. Speaking of which, Tony is also a better character here and has more of a motivation to not be part of the Jets this time. In the original, Tony didn't want to affiliate with them anymore because he thought they were a bunch of knuckleheads and he's tired of them. In this version, when we first meet Tony, it's revealed that he's fresh out of serving a 1-year prison sentence for nearly beating someone to death. Now that he's out, he says he's changed and makes it a point to steer clear of the Jets who may get him locked up again. In addition to the better character writing, I would also argue that the performances overall, I think, are better here. I am, of course, a little biased saying that since I'm clearly more used to modern acting and not the exaggerated style from the 1950s and 1960s. But outside of Rita Moreno and George Takiris, I can't recall any other notable performances from the original. In this newest version, there's several lesser-known actors who are great, including David Alvarez, Ariana Debose, and Rachel Zegler, who really looks the part of Maria. I also really like Josh Andre Rivera and Mike Faist, who is probably going to get nominated for an Oscar. He was perfectly casted as the Jets gang leader Riff, a stubborn character with this toxic attitude of essentially refusing to grow up. It's implied that he comes from a broken home, which could explain his behavior. What I love about Mike Faist's performance is that he plays his character in such a way that would suggest deep down, behind this rough exterior, that Riff is actually a compassionate person who just longs for friendship and family, which is why he's so insistent about bringing Tony back into the Jets. He almost feels like he's losing his family by Tony leaving the group. It seems like he has the capacity to change, but defaults to this toxic tough guy mode because of how broken he is. Now, not all the characters are perfect. One of them that I wish could be removed from the story is Anybody's, who's this person that really wants to be a part of the Jets, but they're rejected because they don't look like one of the boys. I like that they make this character non-binary in this film, which I think fits better than the tomboy character from the original. But in both this version and the original, this character always feels so distracting. It's almost like a comedy sketch with how they'll constantly show up, look frustrated and sad because the Jets don't want to hang out with them, disappear, and then show up again suddenly later on. I just don't think Anybody's adds that much to the story. Yes, the character's name is Anybody's. I did not make that up. Now that I'm bringing up the issues with this film, I should mention that I wasn't a big fan of Ansel Elgort's performance, which is kind of a big problem since he is the lead. He does an okay job of acting in some scenes and handles his singing parts well enough. He just doesn't bring the same energy that everybody else does. Like the old film, there's also parts of this film that got a little too corny for me. especially with the dialogue, like when the racist cop calls the Jets the can't make it Caucasians. It's supposed to be this classist slur, but it's just too funny for me to take it seriously. I have very few gripes with this film technically. I think Steven Spielberg goes a little overboard with the constant lens flares. There's also one CGI shot I can remember where one of the Jets are sliding down a ladder, which doesn't look very good. I also wouldn't have minded seeing maybe more wide shots, which I think are more toned down in the second half from what I can remember. Outside of that, this film is very technically sound. Its $100 million budget is very apparent. I think Spielberg's style is a great match for this material. This is one of the few remakes that I think is genuinely worth seeing in that it can satisfy both fans of the original and people who don't know anything about West Side Story. It says so much to me that I can't really determine which version I like more. Definitely see this and support this if you get the chance. It's not doing super great at the box office, so you really should see this before it leaves theaters. I'm going to give West Side Story 2021 version a 4 out of 5. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave your thoughts on West Side Story 2021 in the comments section below. Feel free to leave a recommendation on a film, TV show, or subject that I should discuss next while you're down there. And of course, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, leave a nice comment, do all the things you can to make the YouTube algorithm like me. Thanks again, everyone. This is Josh. I will see you in my next video for Spider-Man No Way Home, and until then, take it easy, and yeah, I'll see you later.